There comes a moment in life when you realize something painful. Not everyone is going to understand you. Not everyone is going to respect you. Not everyone is going to choose you, stay loyal to you, speak kindly to you, or treat you fairly. And for a while, that destroys you. A text gets ignored and your mind spirals. Someone changes their tone and your whole mood changes with it. A little criticism stays in your head for 3 days. One rejection makes you question your entire worth. You smile on the outside, but inside, you are being controlled by everything. By opinions, by attention, by silence, by disrespect, by uncertainty. And the most exhausting part is this: you look calm, but internally you are at war. Now imagine a different kind of power. Not the power to dominate people, not the power to never feel anything, not the power to become cold, distant, or heartless, but the power to remain steady, to hear the insult and not shrink, to face rejection and not collapse, to lose approval and not lose yourself, to stand in chaos and keep your peace. That is what it means to become emotionally untouchable. And the Stoics knew exactly how to do it. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire while buried in pressure, betrayal, death, and uncertainty. Epictetus was born a slave, yet taught a freedom most people never experience. Seneca lived among wealth, politics, and danger, but kept returning to one truth. If you do not master your inner world, the outer world will own you. So we are going deep into 10 Stoic principles that can make you emotionally untouchable. Not numb, not detached from life, but unshakable. Principle 1. Separate what hurts you from what you think about what hurts you. The first principle is simple, but if you truly understand it, your life changes. Events do not break you, your interpretation does. A message is just a message. Silence is just silence. Criticism is just sound. Rejection is just redirection. Loss is just reality arriving without your permission. What creates suffering is the meaning you attach to it. Someone does not call you back, and instantly the mind says, "I am not important. They are losing interest. I always get abandoned." But what actually happened? A phone stayed silent, that is it. The Stoics trained themselves to catch this gap, the gap between reality and the story, because that story is where emotional chaos begins. Imagine two people hearing the exact same insult. One loses sleep over it, the other shrugs and moves on. Why? Because the insult did not contain the pain, the meaning did. This is why emotionally untouchable people do something most people never do. They question their first interpretation. When something upsets them, they pause and ask, "Did this event wound me, or did my judgment about it wound me?" That question alone can save you from years of unnecessary suffering. Because most people are not reacting to life. They are reacting to the movie in their head. And that movie is often written by old insecurities, old wounds, old fears, old humiliations. So the next time something disturbs you, do not rush to react. Name what happened with brutal simplicity. Not they humiliated me, but they disagreed with me in front of others. Not I was abandoned, but they left. Not my life is falling apart, but something I wanted did not happen. The calmer the language, the calmer the mind. And the calmer the mind, the less power the world has over you. That is where emotional strength begins, not when life gets softer, but when your interpretation gets wiser. Principle 2. Stop handing strangers the keys to your nervous system. Most people are emotionally manipulated by people they do not even respect. A coworker makes a comment, a stranger posts something online, an ex views your story and says nothing. Someone with unresolved issues throws their frustration at you, and suddenly they control your mood. Your energy changes, your mind replays it, your peace disappears. Think about how absurd that is. Someone else, who may not even know themselves, gets to press a button and hijack your entire internal state. The Stoics would call that a form of slavery, because if another person can govern your emotional weather whenever they choose, then your peace does not belong to you. This is why emotionally untouchable people become extremely careful about what they let enter their inner world. They understand a powerful truth. Not every opinion deserves access. Just because someone speaks does not mean you must receive it deeply. Just because someone judges you does not mean they understand you. Just because someone projects pain onto you does not mean you have to carry it. Picture a fortress, not a prison. A fortress, it has gates, and not everyone gets inside. Your mind needs gates too. Without them, every careless word becomes an invasion. Every rude person becomes an architect of your self-worth. Every mood in the room becomes your mood. No wonder people are exhausted. They are living with open emotional borders. So here is the practice. When someone says something that triggers you, ask, does this deserve a reaction or just observation? That question changes everything, because many things that feel personal are actually just noise. Someone being cold, noise. Someone being petty, noise. Someone misunderstanding you, noise. Someone needing you to explain your worth to them, noise. Not everything deserves a piece of your soul. And this is where people get confused. They think emotional strength means proving yourself, defending yourself, winning every argument, clearing every misunderstanding. No, sometimes true power is simply refusing to donate your peace to people who have not earned your depth. You do not need everyone to understand you. You need to understand yourself so clearly that misunderstanding no longer feels like destruction. That is freedom. Principle 3, pause before you react, because your first emotion is often not your wisest one. There is a moment, tiny, almost invisible, that determines the quality of your life. The moment between stimulus and response. Someone disrespects you, someone disappoints you, something goes wrong, a plan collapses, a truth comes out, a wound gets touched. And in that instant, the primitive mind wants speed. Reply now, defend now, attack now, prove now, escape now. But Stoicism teaches something radical. Your power lives in the pause, not in the impulse, in the pause. Because the first emotion is real, but it is not always intelligent. Anger rises fast, fear rises fast, shame rises fast, but wisdom moves slower. That is why so many people destroy relationships, careers, and self-respect in 5 emotional minutes. They later regret for 5 years. The emotionally untouchable person is not someone who never feels the surge. They do. They feel the heat. They feel the sting. They feel the adrenaline, but they do not immediately obey it. They let the wave pass through without handing it the steering wheel. Imagine being cut off in traffic. One version of you explodes, curses, speeds up, carries that anger into the next hour, then into your home, then into your evening. Another version notices the irritation, breathes, lets it go, and protects the peace of the rest of the day. Same event, different life. This is why the Stoics practiced restraint like a discipline. Not because they were emotionless, but because they knew a human being who cannot pause is easily controlled. By people, by circumstances, by mood, by habit. So the next time you are triggered, do not trust the version of you that wants to respond immediately. Delay the text, delay the decision, delay the confrontation, delay the confession, delay the revenge. Take a walk, wash your face, breathe deeper than your ego wants to. Let the body calm down before the mouth opens. Because one of the highest forms of strength is this, to feel everything and still choose carefully. That is emotional mastery, not silence because you are weak, silence because you are in command. Principle 4, never let rejection decide your value. This one cuts deep because almost everyone carries some hidden wound around being unwanted, not chosen, not invited, not loved the way they hoped, not seen, not enough. And because of that wound, rejection starts to feel like proof. Proof that you are lacking, proof that you are forgettable, proof that maybe the worst things you secretly fear about yourself are true. But Stoicism destroys this illusion. Because rejection does not always mean you are not enough. Often it means you were not aligned. You were not meant for that room. You were not speaking to the right people. You were trying to force a door that was never yours. Emotionally untouchable people understand something most people learn too late. Being rejected is painful, but building your identity around that rejection is catastrophic. One person leaves, and some people turn it into a life sentence. One opportunity disappears and they begin doubting their destiny. One audience does not clap and they stop creating. But what if rejection is not a verdict? What if it is training? What if life is removing your addiction to external confirmation? Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself that praise and blame are both unstable. The same crowd that applauds you today can forget you tomorrow. If your identity is built on applause, then you are emotionally rented, not emotionally free. Rented, your peace exists only as long as others approve. That is not power. That is dependence wearing confidence as a costume. So when rejection happens, grieve if you need to. Be human, feel the sting. But do not build a home inside that moment. Ask instead, what is this trying to teach me? Where did I place too much of my worth outside myself? What part of me believed acceptance was the same thing as value? Sometimes rejection reveals weakness. Sometimes it reveals misalignment. Sometimes it reveals timing. Sometimes it reveals that you were asking the wrong people to confirm the right version of you. And that changes everything, because now rejection becomes information, not identity. It becomes redirection, not destruction. And slowly you stop begging the world to pick you. You start picking yourself. Principle 5, train yourself to lose things before life takes them. This may be the most uncomfortable Stoic principle of all, and one of the most liberating. The Stoics practiced something called negative visualization. They would imagine losing what they loved, not to become miserable, but to become awake. They understood that attachment becomes dangerous when it turns into unconscious entitlement. You assume the person will stay. You assume your health will hold. You assume your comfort will last. You assume the job, the routine, the status, the attention, the youth will all remain. And when life takes one of them away, you do not just feel pain. You feel insulted, as if reality betrayed a contract it never signed. Stoicism says, remember the fragile nature of everything. Not so you panic, so you appreciate. Not so you detach from love, so you love more consciously. The emotionally untouchable person enjoys deeply but clings lightly. They know every conversation could be the last. Every season of life is temporary. Every comfort can change. Every role can disappear. And instead of making them fearful, that makes them present. Because once you stop assuming permanence, you stop living half asleep. You stop postponing honesty. You stop taking people for granted. You stop acting shocked that life changes. And here is the hidden gift. When you mentally prepare for loss, loss hurts less because it does not arrive as total psychological chaos. You have already rehearsed your humanity. You have already told yourself, this too could leave, and if it does, I will grieve, but I will endure. That sentence is strength, not because it removes pain, but because it removes fragility. Fragility says, if I lose this, I lose myself. Stoicism says, if I lose this, I will suffer, but I will remain. That is emotional invincibility, to love fully without becoming dependent, to cherish deeply without pretending ownership, to hold life with open hands. Because the more honestly you face impermanence, the less life can ambush you. And the less life can ambush you, the less it can break you. Principle 6, turn every insult, delay, and setback into training. Here is where Stoicism becomes almost unfairly powerful. Because once you adopt this principle, life stops happening to you and starts working for you. The Stoic question is not, why is this happening to me? The Stoic question is, what is this training in me? That delay, what is it training? That betrayal, what is it exposing? That disappointment, what is it refining? That humiliation, what strength does it demand now? Most people experience difficulty as interruption. The Stoic experiences difficulty as exercise. If someone insults you, patience gets trained. If something goes wrong, adaptability gets trained. If you lose something, detachment gets trained. If the world misunderstands you, self-possession gets trained. That is such a different way to live. Because now the obstacle is no longer just an obstacle. It becomes a gym. And every hard moment becomes a chance to become more composed, more disciplined, more dangerous in your calm. Marcus Aurelius wrote to himself constantly because even emperors needed reminders. He did not say life should stop testing me. He trained himself to expect difficulty, then meet it with character. That is the shift. You stop asking life to be easier. You start asking yourself to be stronger. And no, this does not mean becoming a machine. It means refusing to waste suffering. If pain is going to visit you anyway, let it leave something useful behind. Let it sharpen perception. Let it humble ego. Let it deepen self-respect. Let it teach restraint. Let it show you where you are still easily provoked. Because the truth is, the world reveals your weak spots, and that is a gift if your ego does not ruin it. The emotionally untouchable person does not say nothing affects me. They say everything teaches me. That is far more powerful, because when every setback becomes training, life loses its ability to make you feel defeated. It can exhaust you, it can wound you, it can challenge you, but it cannot waste you. Principle 7. Stop seeking revenge. Let your discipline be the response. This principle separates mature strength from wounded ego. When people hurt you, ignore you, mock you, betray you, underestimate you, something inside wants balance. It wants revenge. Not always dramatic revenge. Sometimes subtle revenge, to prove them wrong, to make them regret it, to return the coldness, to become distant on purpose, to weaponize your success, to make sure they feel what they made you feel. And it sounds satisfying. But the Stoics saw the trap, because the moment your peace depends on showing them they still own part of you, you are still orbiting them. Your discipline is not clean. Your ambition is not free. Your growth is still chained to the wound. That is not liberation. That is elegant resentment. The emotionally untouchable person chooses a harder path. They stop performing for the people who doubted them. They stop narrating their life around old enemies. They stop building success as a revenge fantasy. Why? Because revenge keeps the pain alive. Discipline ends it. And this does not mean becoming passive. It does not mean allowing disrespect. It does not mean refusing boundaries. It means your response becomes higher, more controlled, more strategic, more rooted in self-respect than emotional chaos. Sometimes the strongest revenge is silence. Sometimes it is distance. Sometimes it is indifference. Sometimes it is becoming so grounded that the person who hurt you no longer has psychological rent-free space in your head. That is power. Imagine someone tries to provoke you. They expect anger, they expect drama, they expect access to your energy. And instead, they meet composure, not fake composure, real composure. That changes the entire balance. Because emotional reactivity is easy to manipulate, inner order is not. Seneca understood this deeply. The angry person believes they are powerful, but they are usually the easiest to control. Push the right button and they collapse into predictability. But the person who governs themselves becomes difficult to shake. So if you have been hurt, let your life rise, but do not dedicate your rise to your resentment. Build because it is your duty. Heal because it is your duty. Grow because it is your duty, not because someone failed to love you properly. Your greatness should not be a reaction. It should be a decision. Principle 8. Guard your inner dialogue like your life depends on it. Because in many ways it does. Most people think emotional pain comes mainly from what others say. But often, the deepest damage comes from what you repeat to yourself after they leave. That is the real battlefield. Someone criticizes you once and then you criticize yourself 100 more times. Someone rejects you once and then you keep rejecting yourself in your own thoughts. Something goes wrong once and your mind turns it into an identity. I am behind. I ruin everything. I am weak. I always lose. I will never change. The Stoics understood that the mind is always listening. So if your inner voice is careless, brutal, dramatic, and hopeless, your emotional state will reflect it. You cannot speak to yourself like an enemy and expect inner peace. You cannot rehearse fear all day and expect courage. You cannot rehearse humiliation all day and expect confidence. You cannot rehearse scarcity all day and expect calm. Emotionally untouchable people become disciplined in private speech. Not fake positive, not delusional, disciplined. They replace emotional exaggeration with truthful strength. Not my life is over, but this is painful and I can handle painful things. Not nobody respects me, but some people do not understand me, and that does not reduce my value. Not I am broken, but I am in a difficult chapter and chapters change. Same reality, different authority. Your inner dialogue either hands your nervous system a weapon or a wound. Choose carefully. For the next week, catch every sentence you say to yourself after something goes wrong. That voice reveals everything. If it sounds panicked, condemning, helpless, or extreme, then your suffering is being multiplied internally. And this matters because the world is already hard enough. Do not become additional hardship to yourself. Marcus Aurelius used writing as a form of inner correction. He kept returning his mind to reason, perspective, and self-command. Not because he was naturally calm, but because calm must often be practiced in language before it appears in emotion. So speak to yourself like someone responsible for your future. Firmly, honestly, without self-pity, without self-hatred. A disciplined inner voice becomes emotional armor. Because when your own mind stops attacking you, the world gets a lot less powerful. Principle 9. Become friends with discomfort. There is one reason most people never become emotionally untouchable. They spend their lives trying to avoid discomfort. They avoid difficult conversations. They avoid rejection. They avoid failure. They avoid loneliness. They avoid uncertainty. And while they protect themselves from temporary pain, they quietly become prisoners of permanent fear. The Stoics chose the opposite path, not because they loved suffering, because they refused to let comfort become their master. If you can survive discomfort by choice, you stop fearing it when life chooses it for you. That is how strength is built. The first rejection feels devastating. The 10th feels survivable. The first hard conversation feels impossible. Later, it becomes a skill. The first failure feels like the end. Eventually, it becomes another lesson. Emotionally untouchable people are not fearless. They simply stop treating discomfort as danger. And once discomfort stops feeling like danger, your freedom expands. Marcus Aurelius did not become strong because life was gentle with him. He became strong because he kept meeting hardship with discipline. War, pressure, betrayal, loss, responsibility. And instead of asking life for less difficulty, he used difficulty to practice character, patience, courage, self-control, justice, restraint. Without discomfort, those qualities stay theoretical. A sword is not forged in sunlight. It is forged in fire, and character follows the same law. Every inconvenience becomes an invitation. Every disappointment asks, will this make you bitter or better? Every obstacle asks, will you surrender or strengthen? And that choice is not made once. It is made every day. Most people think confidence comes before action. It does not. Confidence is usually what arrives after repeated action. The person who seems fearless today was terrified once. The speaker who commands a room once trembled before saying a single sentence. The person you admire for their calm under pressure once had to practice staying calm when everything in them wanted to run. So do not ask life for fewer challenges. Ask whether each challenge is making you more difficult to shake. Because every uncomfortable moment you face willingly expands the borders of your emotional freedom. Principle 10. Remember that everything passes. One of the deepest forms of strength is remembering that nothing stays. Not praise, not criticism, not success, not pain, not youth, not failure. Everything moves. But people suffer because they keep treating temporary moments like permanent truths. One rejection becomes, I will always be alone. One failure becomes, my life is over. One painful season becomes, this is who I am now. But look back at your own life. How many things once felt unbearable that you barely think about now? The exam you feared, the friendship that ended, the heartbreak that convinced you you would never smile again, the embarrassment that kept you awake at night. Where are those emotions now? Gone, not because they were unreal, because life moves. The Stoics kept returning to this truth of impermanence, not to become detached from life, but to hold it more wisely. When success comes, you become grateful instead of arrogant. When hardship arrives, you become patient instead of hopeless, because you understand something many people forget. This moment is passing too. Imagine standing beside a river. The water never stops moving. The current does not cling to yesterday. It does not resist tomorrow. It simply flows. Life asks the same of you. Love deeply, work passionately, give fully, but do not cling. Because clinging turns beautiful things into fearful possessions. The emotionally untouchable person does not resist change. They expect it. They know people will leave. Bodies will age, plans will fail, dreams will evolve, seasons will change. And instead of asking life to stay still, they learn to move with it. That is freedom, not freezing life, not controlling life, but learning to flow with it. And once you truly understand that everything passes, fear begins losing its grip. Because no storm lasts forever, but neither does every sunrise. That realization fills ordinary moments with extraordinary gratitude. At the beginning, you may have thought becoming emotionally untouchable meant building walls around your heart. But that was never the Stoic goal. The Stoics did not teach people to stop feeling. They taught them to stop being ruled. They did not teach withdrawal from life. They taught steadiness within it. Because the strongest person is not the one who controls everyone around them. It is the one who has learned to govern themselves. The one who can face insult without shrinking, pain without collapsing, rejection without losing identity, chaos without becoming chaos. That is emotional untouchability. Not invincibility, not numbness, not pretending nothing hurts. But becoming so deeply rooted that what happens around you does not get automatic control over what happens within you. Look back at the 10 principles. Each one removed another chain. You learned to separate events from interpretation. You stopped handing strangers the keys to your nervous system. You paused before reacting. You refused to let rejection define your worth. You trained yourself to face loss before life imposed it. You turned setbacks into training. You let discipline replace revenge. You guarded your inner dialogue. You became friends with discomfort. And finally, you remembered that everything passes. Put together, these are not just ideas. They become a new way of living. Imagine two people standing in the same storm. The wind is the same. The rain is the same. The darkness is the same, yet one panics, the other remains steady. What made the difference? Not the storm, the foundation. That is what Stoicism has always been about. Not escaping hardship, but building a foundation so deep that hardship can no longer shake it. One day someone will misunderstand you. Remain calm. One day someone will leave. Continue growing. One day you will fail. Learn. One day life will surprise you with pain. Meet it with dignity. Because every challenge becomes smaller when your identity is larger than the challenge itself. And perhaps that is the greatest lesson the Stoics left us. The strongest person is not the one who controls everyone around them. It is the one who has learned to govern themselves. So the next time life tests your patience, remember this. No one can insult your character unless you abandon it. No one can steal your peace unless you hand it over. No one can make you feel small unless you forget who you are. That is what it means to become emotionally untouchable. Not invincible, not emotionless, but deeply rooted, steady, calm, free. And when your peace no longer depends on circumstances, approval, timing, or the behavior of other people, you stop chasing control over the world. Because you have finally mastered the one place where freedom was always meant to begin. Within yourself.